This video was sponsored by Skillshare. Hey, happy Friday. This week Microsoft announced the biggest acquisition in video game history. Samsung finally revealed the Exynos 2200, although things are still very confusing, and OPPO started teasing gadgets completely without batteries. We also have a special edition electric vehicle quiz this week with 20 brand new questions. That is linked down in the description, and welcome to the Friday Checkout. Okay, my release highlights this week start with the Xiaomi 11T Pro in India, which just immediately competes with and undercuts the new OnePlus 9 RT by about $75. Then we have the Linux-based Pine Phone Pro, along with the also Linux-based Pine Note, which is an experimental e-reader with a stylus, also for $399. Weird. And finally, Google Play Games launched on PCs just 1 month after Google announced that they would do this, with the beta launching in Korea, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. Android gaming on PCs is apparently a thing. As always, all of the new device releases of the week can be found in the Crowd app together with all of their details, and I've linked to that down in the description. Okay, my first story of this week is going to be Microsoft putting up an insane almost $70 billion or almost half of their entire cash reserves to completely buy Activision Blizzard. That entails massive gaming franchises on desktop, console, and mobile like Call of Duty, Diablo, World of Warcraft, Overwatch, StarCraft, and of course Candy Crush, and it would be the biggest deal in gaming history by a big margin. As I'm sure you've already heard, Activision Blizzard was facing continued troubles in the last couple of months with significant problems in leadership and culture, so for them this is like a get out of jail free card with a big check at the end, while for Microsoft this is a high risk, high reward kind of gamble. If Microsoft doesn't manage to fix the leadership and culture issues at Activision Blizzard, this could be a terrible acquisition that could cost them a lot of good employees, terrible press, and it could drag the entire gaming division of the company down with it. But if they do manage to fix them, then they have just managed to buy probably the world's most valuable gaming franchises for way less money than they would have paid before these troubles, and they can eventually get a great return. Microsoft has an incredible track record of buying and successfully managing businesses, including Minecraft of course, but also GitHub, LinkedIn, Nuance, Bethesda, NPM, and more. Microsoft, especially under Satya Nadella, does have one of the most professional and grown-up business cultures around. They managed to acquire all of these separate businesses and integrate them all under one roof without any major culture issues or any other issues for that matter. So if anyone could pull it off, maybe it's them. And if it works, the intellectual property that they're getting here is obviously incredible. Probably the best there is outside of maybe buying Nintendo, which by the way would have still been a cheaper deal than this, and it is of course a massive addition to the Xbox Game Pass business model. If you own an Xbox right now, you might be feeling pretty good about yourself right now, but on the other hand, Sony's stock fell pretty hard as the giant green glowing X looms over Sony HQ in Japan, and Sony was forced to tell outlets that, quote, "We expect that Microsoft will abide by contractual agreements and continue to ensure Activision games are multi-platform." Of course, the other big risk with this deal is that it might fall under antitrust scrutiny, which the US government seems to be increasingly fond of these years. But I guess if there's one company who has plenty of experience with that as well, that would also be Microsoft, so we'll just have to wait and see. Okay, and for my second story, we'll have to talk about the Exynos 2200 again, the upcoming flagship chip from Samsung, which they were supposed to announce last week, but then if you remember correctly, they just didn't. So Samsung actually did officially reveal the chip this week, exactly 1 week late, but they actually just made things even more confusing in my opinion. Instead of giving us all the crucial specs, we got some specs, some holes, and a strange launch video claiming, quote, "Playtime is over" with cool aliens, but absolutely no further details. Samsung did confirm the basics that we already knew from before, like the fact that it's built on Samsung's 4nm process and uses an RDNA2 based GPU, but they built in partnership with AMD, but nothing more on the GPU front besides saying that it offers, quote, "console quality visuals with hardware accelerated ray tracing and variable ray shading. No clock speeds, no cores, no performance figures, nothing." Alright. And it's the same story with the CPU as well. We did get confirmation that Samsung uses the same 1+3+4 core layout as the new Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, with the Cortex X2 being the big core as well, which we already knew, but no further details beyond that, and especially no talk about clock speeds or actual performance at all. Instead, the only real news that Samsung was willing to share with us were all the details of the other elements of the SoC, like the ISP, the NPU, and the 5G modem, for example, which, yeah, they do look okay. Samsung's ISP slots in right between those of Qualcomm and MediaTek on paper this year, with features like support for up to 200 megapixel cameras, as well as 8K recording at 30 FPS, all as expected. Samsung also says that their new NPU is twice as fast as that of the Exynos 2100 and works with the ISP for better photographs, while on the 5G modem side, Samsung also supports millimeter wave and sub-6 GHz, as well as 10 gigabits per second downloads, which again sounds very similar to Qualcomm on paper. So that's good, I guess, but this half announcement that came out 1 week late is just so weird. I suppose they just got surprised by how everybody freaked out last week when they pulled their announcement and they were like, well, okay, we have to give something to the masses. So they gave us this without actually confirming any of the details of any of the components, such as the CPU and the GPU that we're actually interested in and worried about. We'll have to wait a little further to see what the chip will actually perform like, and now that Samsung has at least committed to launching both an Exynos and a Snapdragon version of the S22, we at least know that the mystery should be revealed pretty soon. Okay, and my third story of the week is going to be a super interesting new research white paper coming from OPPO about zero power communication. Remember that TV remote Samsung revealed along their smart TVs not long ago that harvests energy from Wi-Fi signals instead of having to get charged? This is basically OPPO expanding on a very similar tech. So apparently this is not quite ready for things like smartphones or smartwatches without batteries just yet, but instead OPPO is talking about small devices that only need tiny amounts of energy that they can harvest from Bluetooth, Wi-Fi and cell phone signals that are already being broadcast in homes, offices, warehouses, factories and so on. Beyond TV remotes, OPPO envisions sensors and similar tiny gadgets in smart homes, smart factories, agriculture, etc., including in hard-to-reach spots like inside car tires, for example, or worn on bodies like wearable blood glucose monitors. And there's also talk of location tags similar to Apple's AirTags that wouldn't need battery swaps and could potentially track things over long distances, such as migratory birds. Quack, 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 quack. That's my bird sound. Since Samsung does have something similar in an actual product already, I suppose this is not entirely science fiction, and of course OPPO is saying that devices with this technology included will become cheaper, easier to manage, smaller, etc. I mean, you don't have to wire a cable somewhere or constantly exchange batteries in it. That's kind of cool. The tech is basically turning radio frequency energy into direct current, and that is then either briefly stored in capacitors or directly used to drive chips, sensors, and circuits, and using backscattering, the device can send information back without any active transmitter. Okay, and to wrap things up, I am super happy and very excited to announce that I have just released my first ever class on Skillshare. It's called Researching and Writing for YouTube, How to Make a Great Video Essay, and in it I share my whole process that I've worked out over 7 years of making videos for the internet, all the way from the tricks that I used to come up with hundreds of great ideas, the elimination process that I used to select which ideas are actually worth committing to, as well as my thoughts on how to do good research and how to structure a script to be both interesting and to convert well on YouTube. Whether you are already a YouTuber or want to explore becoming one, or just want to hear how I think about the whole creation process, I really hope you will enjoy it. If you're interested in this class or thousands of others taught by great teachers that span writing, photography, video editing, graphic design, and more, check out Skillshare. The first 1,000 people who sign up using my link in the description will get a 1-month free trial. Check it out, happy learning, and I'll see you next Friday.